My father threw me away to be with his new family, so I threw him away too and found a new dad. My name is Emma, and this is the story of how betrayal, pain, and resilience led me to discover a new kind of love and family. A story that begins in the suburbs of Chicago and ends in the rolling hills of Tuscany. When I was 10, my world was my dad. My mother passed away when I was 6, and my dad, David, became my everything. He tucked me into bed, packed my school lunches with silly notes, and sang off-key to the Beatles while we drove around in his beat-up truck. I thought nothing could ever separate us. But then, she came along. Her name was Julia. She was glamorous, the kind of woman you see in glossy magazines with flawless hair and a dazzling smile. My dad met her at a corporate event, and within months, she was in our home, rearranging the furniture, adding expensive decorations, and, most painfully, trying to rearrange my life. "Pleased to see you both," she said. At first, I tried to like her. I really did. But Julia didn't want a daughter. She wanted a fresh start with my dad, and I was an inconvenient reminder of his past. She was cold, dismissive, and made it clear that I wasn't part of her vision of the perfect family. Then, one evening, everything changed. It was a cold November night, the kind of cold that stings your cheeks and makes your breath visible in the air. I'd just returned from school to find my dad and Julia sitting in the living room. The tension in the room was palpable. My dad wouldn't meet my eyes. "Emma," he began, his voice shaky. We think it's best if you stay with your Aunt Carol for a while." My heart dropped. Aunt Carol lived in a tiny apartment in Seattle. She was kind but overworked, barely able to take care of herself, let alone a child. "Why?" I asked, my voice trembling. Julia's voice cut through the air like a blade. "David and I need time to focus on building our family. You're old enough to understand, Emma. It's not personal." "Not personal? My own father was sending me away. How could it not be personal?" The days that followed were a blur of tears, packing, and goodbyes. My dad hugged me at the airport, whispering, "It's just for a little while," but I could tell he didn't mean it. The man who had once been my hero was now a stranger, choosing his new life over me. Aunt Carol did her best, but life with her was lonely. I missed my dad, our shared jokes, and even the off-key Beatles sing-alongs. I waited for calls that never came, letters that were never written. Weeks turned into months, and then into years. My dad moved on with his new family, and I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. By the time I turned 18, I had learned to rely on myself. I got a scholarship to study art in Florence, Italy, and decided to leave my past behind. I boarded the plane with a mix of excitement and fear, hoping that a new country would mean a new beginning. Italy was everything I'd dreamed of and more. The cobblestone streets, the smell of fresh bread wafting from bakeries, and the warmth of the people made me feel alive in ways I hadn't in years. And that's when I met Marco. Marco owned a small art gallery in Florence. He was in his late 40s, with salt and pepper hair, kind eyes, and a laugh that could light up a room. He took an interest in my work, offering to display some of my paintings in his gallery. Over time, he became more than a mentor. He became a father figure. Marco taught me to embrace life's imperfections. He listened to my stories, celebrated my successes, and comforted me in my failures. He even started calling me figlia mia, which means my daughter in Italian. For the first time in years, I felt loved, cherished, and part of a family. Then, one day, out of the blue, I received an email from my dad. "Emma, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I know I've made mistakes, and I want to make things right. Julia and I divorced last year, and I realize now how much I hurt you. Please, let's talk. Love, Dad." The words felt hollow. After years of silence, he expected me to welcome him back with open arms. Marco noticed my distress and asked what was wrong. When I told him, he said something that stayed with me. "Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, but trust must be earned." I decided to meet my dad, but on my terms. He flew to Florence, and we met at a cafe near the gallery. Seeing him again was surreal. He looked older, tired, and full of regret. "Emma," he began, I don't know where to start. I'm sorry. I was selfish and wrong." I listened, but I didn't let him off the hook easily. "Do you have any idea what it's like to be thrown away, to feel like you're not enough?" Tears welled up in his eyes. "I was a fool. I thought I was doing the right thing for everyone, but I was wrong. Please, give me a chance to make it up to you." I wanted to scream, to tell him it was too late, but Marco's words echoed in my mind. "Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. Over time, my dad and I started to rebuild our relationship. But it was never the same. Marco remained my true father figure, the one who had stepped up when my own father had stepped away. At my wedding years later, I asked Marco to walk me down the aisle. My dad watched from the audience, clapping with tears streaming down his face. In the end, I learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about love, loyalty, and showing up when it matters most. My dad threw me away, but I found someone who picked me up and taught me to love again. And for that, I will always be grateful.